Chagai El-Ad, the Director General of pro-Palestinian NGO B'Tselem, addressed the United Nations Security Council on Thursday, where he leveled accusations of intolerable behaviors at the feet of Israeli officials who claim his speech did nothing but undermine Israeli security at home and abroad. Well, now some in the government are taking the criticisms one step further, calling for a complete dismantling of the B'Tselem NGO. While returning to the studio with analysis is Director of External Relations for Tirtzu, Eytan Meir. Eytan, thanks for coming back in.
Good to be here.
All right, so first of all, again, let's just start off with some of El-Ad's comments. He opened his speech really discussing the status quo, and he called the Israeli status quo, he said it was a calculated and deliberate process of splitting people up from one another, from their land, disrupting their lives and isolating them to make them easier to oppress. What's your initial reaction to that?
I mean, we hear this nonsense all the time, but I don't really want to talk about Chagai El-Ad because he's really nothing. He's just he's one piece in a really large industry fueled by foreign governments who fund Israeli NGOs in order to do exactly this, to slander Israel abroad, to petition the Israel Supreme Court on behalf of terrorists, to also petition the Israeli court against the IDF. So what this really is a manifestation of just the real tactic of the foreign governments. What they use is, we call it a salami tactic. They take all different parts of the country and knock off and cut off a different part of it. You have the South. They say, what we're doing with the Bedouins, they build illegally, it doesn't matter. You're trying to move them, that's a war crime. So it's illegitimate what you're doing in the South. Gaza, we don't even need to talk about that. War crimes, cross off Gaza. Jerusalem, segregation, cross it off. Judea and Samaria, apartheid, cross it off. The Golan, occupied, and there's nothing left.
So you're saying that this is just a pure slander? You're saying there's no meat or substance to these accusations?
Of course, all these organizations, they're not human rights organizations. They couldn't care about human rights. They're just trying to advance a political agenda, which is, in their view, to force Israel to do things that Israel doesn't want to do, the people don't want to do, and the elected officials that were voted by the people shouldn't be doing it. That's all.
So do you agree then that these types of comments should, they go beyond simple criticisms then and are actionable offenses against the government?
I mean, when you take, as you say, airing your dirty laundry abroad, that's really the issue, is that all these organizations essentially, they get money from foreign governments, and then on behest of their foreign patrons, they go speak to the UN, essentially to their bosses. I mean, it's kind of a vicious cycle. So I think what really needs to be done is we really have to start cracking down on these organizations and say, listen, you get money from foreign governments to harm the state of Israel, take away all your non-profit status, you get discount on property tax, no more. You get discount on income tax, no more. And you start getting taxed.
But the personal attack on this NGO or another NGO, or any really BDS activists or politically unaffiliated or rather I should say dissident, politically dissident, going after that doesn't set a bar that, where a pendulum can swing the other way with a different government?
No, that's exactly why it has to be something quantifiable. And it can't just be something that you mentioned, the law. It can't just be someone who acts out against the government, because we want to have something that says you could actually say, okay, they get X amount of money.
Sure.
Exactly. Criticism is great. Everyone, we encourage it. But when you start getting money from foreign governments, that's the real issue. So as I talked about the ability to quantify something, you say if they get X amount of money from foreign governments, that means they should lose X amount of nonprofit status. And that's something that we really need to start pushing, because this is a serious issue.
Eytan Meir, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.